Turn your sound on soon. If they can hear me. Just real quick, like, make sure it works. We have the one problem with sound. Boom, working. Hey, everybody. Now turn it off, because that's weird. Okay, not you. You don't turn it off. That was Blair. Blair's over there. Holly's over there. Just in case I point during this, Blair, Holly, Blair, Holly. They may join. You never know. 6 feet away. I don't know how that's going to work, but they got to stay 6 feet away. I'm going to tilt that. All right. Cool. Oh, yeah. As you come in, as you arrive, Blair would like for you to, wait, what do you want him to do?
Help us decide movies.
Oh,
Netflix party.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a Netflix party. And so Netflix party, that means that we're all going to watch the same movie at the same time on Netflix. Like, that's a thing apparently that you can do. And so we need your help picking what movie it's going to be. So as you come in, comment, put that in the chat, Blair, what you need, so that when they come in, they see that. There's getting it. Appropriate movie recommendations. What would you like for us all to watch together? What would you like for us to watch together? I don't know if I can see all the comments. I'm unsure. Like, I don't know if
Okay, it's fine.
like the last couple times, Blair, you posted something, I haven't been able to see it. So anyway, yeah. So tell us what movie you would like for us all to watch together. There we go. What movie on Netflix should we watch for Netflix party? PG or G. Can't do PG-13 because, well, some of you aren't 13. Maybe by this point in the year, everybody is. Still, no. Not happening. What's up, Peter Brown? I see that comment. And Davis. Oh, and Nick. I didn't see yours up there. Hi, Nick. Great to see all of you. Maddie.
Joseph King of Dreams.
No clue what that movie is. To be honest, not a clue. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. I mean, you can look it up. Hi, Caitlin. I have no idea. I'm trying to think. Never heard of it. Blair, ever heard of Joseph King of Dreams?
That's the Prince of Egypt.
Oh, Prince of Egypt movie. Got it. I should know that.
No, I guess that would be called. He said Cruise. Oh, this is a different.
It's a different movie.
Egypt is different.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. Shout out Blair for doing our devotional today during lunch. If you were on there, you were treated to wonderful times, I'm sure. I had a meeting during that time I could not get away from, so Blair stepped in, rocked it. Thanks for doing that. So if you appreciate that, let her know. Let her know. And then show up on Friday for lunch and we'll keep going. We'll keep going. That means good job.
Oh.
Yeah, you're welcome. See, I got this. Davis, we're on the same page. I got you, dude. I got you. All right. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. As people roll in, we'll let it happen. So for the start of our little short lesson, so tonight's lesson will be shorter in nature, just because we're going to talk about something for the next 4 weeks that I think is very practical for you guys right now. Incredibly practical. If you showed up before we actually started the live stream, you saw the graphic. We're starting 4 weeks on a series called Family Feud, which is maybe one of my favorite game shows. It's Lauren's favorite game show, if I had to guess. Steve Harvey, one of the greatest game show hosts. Funny dude. But I would like for you to start off. Blair's going to post some questions. She did this for us last week, and it was much more helpful and efficient than when I did it. But she's going to post a couple of questions. And so those first couple of questions for you to consider are, what's one silly reason you've gotten frustrated at a family member? And I asked Holly that question earlier, and she said, we're talking about today, right? Like this is something that is very real to you and probably happens multiple times on a daily basis right now. And then the other one, which family member frustrates you most often? They're probably sitting next to you right now. It's very possible. So those are your first couple of questions for you to consider. What's one silly reason you've gotten frustrated at a family member, and which of your family members frustrates you most often? And yes, Davis, we'll hang out a little bit after. People want to play some games, see your face. We do that on Zoom. I'll put a yeah, it's even more fun when you're both on the chat. So that makes it a lot more fun. So we're gonna start, like I said, we're gonna start tonight what we're going to do for the next few weeks, and just talk about what we do whenever our families frustrate, annoy, or maybe even hurt us. And so, again, like I said, you've been stuck in a house with, stuck is not the right word. You've been blessed with the fortune of being with your family much more than you probably are used to. Maybe not. Maybe that's not a thing. But like whenever I remember, whenever I was I just had to be like 4th grade. I still lived in Red Oak, and we lived in apartments over off of 35. And there was these storage units that were being built. And at the time, I liked to rollerblade. That was my big thing. It made me feel cool. I didn't have enough balance to skateboard, and I wasn't going to be one of those guys rolling around on a scooter because lame. And so rollerblades, yeah, yeah. My nickname was Scooter too, so that wouldn't have worked. Yeah, no. But anyway, so rollerblading, that was my jam. Took the middle wheels out so I could jump on the poles and the handrails and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I was pretty good. But anyway, so I was a 4th grader. I thought I was great. It was the storage units being built, and so they had all the frames up of the storage units. And my mom, very clearly, you can go anywhere, rollerblade anywhere around the apartments. Just don't go close to the highway. That was an obvious one. I always knew that was a rule. And don't go over there because it's a construction site. There's nails and there's stuff that you could fall and hurt yourself pretty badly and all this stuff. And so it was all just the metal framing. And they had the best floors. It was a slick kind of floor, concrete. Oh man, it was the best. And I know that because I ended up going over there, and there was about 10 of my friends with me, and I'm saying my mom embarrassed the daylights out of me coming over there and yelling at me to get home right now type thing. And I told you not to be out here. And I thought it was the most lame thing because my mom had to come yell at me. There wasn't anything wrong with in my mind. What I'm just rollerblading, right? I'm not getting hurt. Nobody cares that we're here, like all this stuff. And it embarrassed me, frustrated me, it annoyed me. I was grounded for the weekend, couldn't go back outside type thing. And it was one of those where I just wanted to just yell. I don't understand you. I don't understand your logic. I don't understand why you're doing this. You're overreacting. Maybe you've had that with your parent yesterday, at some point during this quarantine. Maybe that's happened to you. But maybe you have these stories. I want you to, come on guys. Blair asked a couple of questions. What's one silly reason you've gotten frustrated at a family member? And then which of your family members frustrates you most often? Lauren is the only one that put anything, and she just said, my brother, no reason needed. So thanks, Lauren. But the rest of you, this is probably the easiest question I could possibly give you. So take advantage of that. Answer the question for the sake of conversation. That would be great. And what you'll start to be able to see is our families are pretty different. Our families are pretty unique. All of our stories are different. Our family background, like grew up as an only child. That's very different than a lot of you. I grew up with just my mom. Maybe that's different than a lot of you. Where we grew up in an apartment, very small, right? Shared a bathroom. Very different than a lot of you. Limited privacy in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment with, that's your whole family. So all of our stories are different, but I think one common theme in our stories is we've lost our patience with our family members at some point in some way. And maybe that moment for you, because I'm having to be hypothetical because no one's answered, just saying, maybe that's when there's been a miscommunication between you and your parent or your siblings. Like you said something and it came out wrong. Maybe your tone sucked when the way you said it. Maybe just your intentions weren't read correctly. Something like that. All right, Peter, thank you. Yeah, whenever they ask me questions about my day, for whatever reason, I get frustrated sometimes because I feel like they should know even though they weren't there. Yeah, right. Why? It's just like every other day at school. Thanks. It's school. I have to go. I don't want to go. You make me. I don't know. Yeah, I would never answer. Would you answer that question when you were asked, hey, how was school? Good. Right? Is that how you all answered it? Like Blair, you're probably a perfect child and you told them. Yeah, that sounds about right. Huh? You were never at school. that was not Holly. She totally went to school. But I would do the same thing. How was your day? I mean, I sat in class. I went to lunch. Peter, we went to football practice. It was practice, did football things, right? What do you want me to say? I don't understand. Ian retweeted Peter's comment. Dalton, I get frustrated anytime someone comes into my room randomly or touches me. Not a fan. Almost threw hands the other day. Don't touch me. Not about that. Yeah. So just little things that frustrate you. Maybe that's like a little preference thing. I never got annoyed whenever my mom would ask me how my day was. It was just she would get annoyed at me whenever I didn't answer, right? It never frustrated me. It didn't frustrate me to just have to say good every single time. But yeah, maybe that's your preference or whatever. But maybe there's been moments where, you get frustrated, you get annoyed. Maybe you take your frustration or your annoyance a little too far. Maybe you get embarrassed by your sibling or somebody like that. That was my story. My mom embarrassed me in front of my friends, and I was just, that's what made me hot more than anything. I understood that I did something she told me not to do, but the fact that she embarrassed me in front of my friends as a 4th grader, right, that was not okay with me. And so there's thousands of stories that we could tell, you wouldn't know it, about times when we've lost patience with our families. Blair or Holly, do you want to bail us out and give us a story by chance?
All of us were watching a movie, or watching TV last night, and Cooper was sitting on the couch, and he gotta love him, but the ADHD kids can't sit still, and so he was just shaking his leg, and I almost had to cut him.
Cooper almost died watching a movie because he couldn't stay still. Shocker to all of us. Every single one of us cannot even believe it. You just get annoyed at little things that if anybody else did it, you wouldn't be annoyed at it. But because it's your family, oh my gosh, it's just escalates and it's just exponentially more annoying just because it's you, right? Because I know you're doing it to me on purpose. We wouldn't think about that towards anybody else. You would not think of that about your best friend or someone that you don't know or a classmate. You would not take it near as personal, but because it's your family, you're doing this on purpose. You're doing this specifically because you know I don't like it. And they're like, no, I'm just fidgeting, right? No, it's nothing towards you. Right, yeah. That's how it works. If you were with us for our lunchtime devotional, I think this was the one on Monday, I told a story about being in the grocery store, and Lauren was pushing the basket, and I was walking in front of her, and I stopped, and she didn't notice that I stopped, and so she hit me in the back of the ankle with the grocery basket. And I turned around, and I was like, "What are you doing?" I just kind of blew up on her, right? "What are you doing? You didn't see me stop, pay more attention," type thing. And I kind of started thinking if I had been at the grocery store by myself and that had been somebody that I don't know, I'd have turned around and just gone, oh, they just said, oh, I'm so sorry, which is what Lauren did. I'm so sorry. If they had done the same thing, I'd have gone, oh, it's no problem. Don't worry about it. And because I would have assumed, oh, you didn't mean to do that. That was obviously an accident. You weren't standing there with your buddy going, I'm going to just ram this dude, right? And that wasn't the thing. But for whatever reason, whenever it's with Lauren, or if it had been my mom or somebody that I'm really close with, and they had done that, I turned around and I assumed there was like this malicious intent in their heart, and they did this on purpose, and you're trying to hurt me, even though they didn't. So why is that? Why is it the people that we're so close with, the people that we love the deepest, and that would do anything for us, we assume the worst in them? It should be the other way around, but why doesn't that happen? And so the next couple of questions, and if you're new here, we ask the questions first, and then I give a little commentary on it, and then we look at the answers at the end, just in case you were confused, and that's why we haven't had many of the answers. So, okay, what's one way your family is imperfect? First question, what's one way your family is imperfect, and what do you love about your family despite its imperfections? So Blair will get those questions in there for you. Again, what's one way your family is imperfect? And then what do you love about your family despite its imperfections? Okay, so spoiler alert, our families aren't perfect, right? I hope that's not new to you. I hope that's not your one thing. You're like, oh, I gotta write this down. Like, that's real good. No, our families are not perfect. And again, we have many questions that we could give, or give many answers we could give to the question of how our families are imperfect. But we need to kind of back up and be a little more broad and understand that the world we live in as a whole is imperfect, right? So like the first thing I want you to know for tonight, and some of this stuff is going to sound very obvious and very elementary, but it's something that we need to lay this foundation before we can move forward in the next few weeks with this topic, and just understand that our world is imperfect. That's kind of the first thing I want you to understand. Our world as a whole is imperfect. And we see that just starting from the very beginning of Scripture. In Genesis, we see that sin entered the world, and Adam and Eve disobeyed God in the garden. And so starting with Adam and Eve, humans just have this natural tendency to do things that are against God, do things that are sinful, do things that are for selfish desires, because we are inherently selfish and self-serving, self-seeking individuals. And so we just have this tendency, just like Adam and Eve did, to disobey God, to lose our patience with each other, to cause pain to other people, to frustrate one another. And so just like Adam and Eve struggled with selfishness and greed and pride, you can read more about their story in the first couple of chapters of this book. The second thing that we see 4 chapters into Scripture, in Genesis chapter 4, we see that families are imperfect. So the world is imperfect, and then families are imperfect, right? And so Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, and you don't need a Bible verse for me to prove that our families are imperfect. But interestingly enough, 4 chapters in, Scripture makes that very clear, where Cain he grows jealous of his brother Abel, and he kills him. So maybe you've never gone to that extreme in your jealousy towards your sibling. I would hope not. If you have, don't put it in the chat. I would prefer if you would just not do that. But as a consequence for his actions, for his jealousy, and for his rage, not being able to handle his emotions, he was banished from the land. He was banished from his family. And so you're like I said, you and your siblings may not have a relationship as troubled as Cain and Abel, but I'm guessing other sins like jealousy and anger and hatred still apply to your family, where you resent the fact that your sibling is the smart one, or the athletic one, or the popular one, or the one that's okay in crowds, or whatever you dislike about yourself most. It seems like your sibling is the opposite, right? Their strength is your weakness, and you resent them for that. And so maybe some of the answers that we've had, Holly and Blair over there giggling at a couple of them, so I can't see them. So did we have any for those questions that were worth sharing?
Yeah, so Peter Brown said
Of course,
a lot
Peter.
for the first one, there can be a lot of miscommunication that leads to arguments or confusion.
Okay, so what's one way your family is imperfect? And Peter said miscommunication that leads to arguments or confusion. Yeah.
And so then the second one was that they're always making the effort to learn what's going on in everyone's lives.
Okay, what do you love most about your family?
Oh, Brandon.
It's that they are always making the effort to learn what's going on in everyone's lives. That's good. Being involved. Something that's good about your family despite their imperfection. So I hope, or any other ones you want to throw out there real quick?
They said that her family is very competitive at times, and it can go
Ooh,
too far.
competitive families. Yeah.
But she said, but I love how we can have fun together and laugh a lot.
Yeah, there is competition, but man, I'm not part of one of those overly competitive families, fortunately. My gosh, like, it could get bad. You say stuff you don't mean in the heat of competition, right? It's like, guys, we were just like, I don't know, something silly, and we're just trying to finish a puzzle. I mean, like, calm down. It's not worth talking to people that way. It's just a puzzle, which they suck anyway. So the world is imperfect. Your families are imperfect. Look at me in my eyes. Not y'all, that's weird. You people, you are imperfect. That's the third thing I need you to know. The world is imperfect. Your families are imperfect. And guess what? You're a part of the world and you're a part of your family. So that means you are imperfect. So the next question for you to consider, we've talked about other people a lot. This one's about you. So what's one way you sometimes frustrate your family? What's one way you sometimes frustrate your family? So Blair's putting that in our chat. And so this is where you get to talk and tell on yourself, because everyone should be able to answer this. I mean, if either one of you, I'm not going to call just one. If you were to answer that question, what's one way you sometimes frustrate your family?
I get super annoyed when they're sitting down watching TV and I have things that need to be done.
That's a mom response. They're sitting down watching TV and I have stuff that they need to do or she needs to have done, right?
That's not just a mom, that's a wife too.
Well,
So that's all three of my boys.
It says, what's one way you frustrate your family?
Oh no, I frustrate all of them.
Oh, you frustrate them because of that. Got it. How do you frustrate your family, Blair? You don't. You're perfect. I get it. I get it.
Whenever I go home, and I'm sure that I bet y'all are guilty of this, students, but I feel like whenever I go home, I'm like, Mom, can you do this for me? Great, my brother. Can you cook me lunch? I'm never home. Can you cook me?
Oh yeah, using it.
Can you do my laundry?
Using it.
Are you like, and ask so much, and I'm sure it gets on their nerves at times. Be like, well, my brother's like, well, why don't you just do it?
Yeah.
Why can't you go get your own water bottle or
Yeah.
this?
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was one of those like, okay, in or out, pick one. Like in and out of the house, in and out of the house, in and out of the house. My mom's like, oh my gosh, you have to stop. You have to either be inside or outside. I cannot handle this. Or like I would forget to take the dog outside. We lived upstairs in an apartment, so I couldn't just let him out in the backyard. I wouldn't take the dog out. Or she would wake me up. I would not do the trash. I knew what day the trash needed to be taken out. And I came home sometimes with the trash in my room because I didn't take it out. She's like, I'm not going to smell it. It's going to stay in your room. Whoops. That was my bad. But like, it's really convenient on all these questions that we've had so far before this one. It's really convenient to just put all the blame on our families, right? Put all of the blame on everyone else other than us, right? But we need to understand we are not perfect. What we got? We got a good answer?
No, Dalton just reminded me of another thing that I do. He said he frustrates his family by literally always complaining about how they eat. It's so frustrating. And they hate that I always complain about the way they eat.
Yes. Holly is that. Holly will just stop in the middle of a staff meeting or chewing ice or something. And I love you so much. I love you so much. But I'm going to kill you. If you don't stop chomping on your ice, I will kill you. And I think she's serious. I think she might. It's so bad. Any noise that she can hear going on, like chewing gum or anything, Oh yeah, and the family does it on purpose. Oh, reminds me of, so my best friend, 5th and 6th grade, lived over in Somerset. I'd go to his house, and I mean, I was there daily. And his mom would just, if you talked about ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, things like that, she would have it like physically gag, right? Like it was, she would go away if you just went on and on. She'd go outside and throw up. And so there were 3 boys in the family, and so they just thought it was the funniest thing. It was like 3rd, 5th, and 7th or 8th grade or something like that were the 3 at the time. And when I was in like 5th grade, and I just remember her running out into the backyard, just right all over the place, because they wouldn't stop. They just, if her mom started yelling at them, they're like, I know how to make this stop, and they just start talking about mustard or something, and she'd just run out of the house like, right?
Sarah Cuba, that one with mayonnaise, is that the word?
I think Sarah Cuba is that way with mayonnaise. Just in case anybody wants to know, Sarah Cuba is like that with mayonnaise. So have fun. Do with that what you will. So that somehow making a point out of this that's, you know, for religious purposes, just a simple application that we need to understand, foundationally understand. The world is imperfect. Families are imperfect. We are imperfect. So that means that the individuals in our family, including us, make up an imperfect family unit. And we have to understand that is true about one another before we can move forward and learn these things. Because if we don't do this first, we're going to continually go, oh, yeah, see, this is about them. This is about my brother. This is about my sister. And thinking we are perfect, or we're just way more perfect than they are. We're way less perfect than, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I was trying to do it the other way around. That didn't work. Anyway, we're a lot better than they are, right? We've got to figure it out at least a lot better than, no, we're all imperfect. We all are selfish. We all have pride issues, jealousy issues over something. And if it's not one of those, I could sit here all night putting words down, and one of them eventually would apply to you. So know that this all applies to you as well. So the text that we're going to look at just real quick, if you've been a part of Lunchtime Devotionals, this will sound familiar to you, but it's James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. So while you turn there, there's good news with all of this, that we live in an imperfect world, that we are imperfect people. It's that God is patient with us, right? And so just like when Adam and Eve sinned, God didn't look at them and say, like, you guys are idiots. You're out of the family. I can't be around you anymore. He didn't respond with anger or frustration or vengeance. And instead, God sought them out, and he had a conversation with them. He's a good parent, wants them to learn from what they did, know that they messed up. He didn't never affirm their sin and say, you know what, it's no big deal. No, sin is a big deal. But he wanted them to know that this is something that I want to have a conversation about. And so throughout all of human history, throughout scripture and then all of human history, people have been disobeying, hurting, and rebelling against God. And we see that over and over again. So it's nothing new that we suddenly started doing in 2020. But he still responds to us with compassion, with love, with mercy, and with grace. And we see that modeled no better than in the life of Jesus. And so when others, including family members, and we could apply this to friends, we could apply this to classmates, we could apply this to teammates, we could apply this to coaches, we could apply this anywhere you want to, but we're applying it to family. Whenever somebody in our family hurts us, before we react, it's probably a good idea to remember this text. Okay, so James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. And before I read this, Blair's going to put your next question just so you can start thinking about it. When it comes to our families, what does it look like to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry? So spoiler alert, that's what the text says. So James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20 says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." And then verse 20 says, "For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." Know this, my beloved brothers. And so I'm going to be repetitive. If you were a part of our devotional, maybe you've forgotten this, but we've seen James over and over and over again have this phrase, my beloved brothers. He says it frequently. And that's because this letter that he's writing is being written to Christians who have been dispersed because of persecution, because of trials. They have been scattered all over to different parts away from their homeland. And so this letter was written to all of them. meant to, make its rounds and be sent out all over the place to all these different groups. But James is writing to Christians in this letter. And so that's anytime he says, my beloved brothers, we can assume, okay, this is him reminding us that I'm talking to you if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus. So know this, Christian, know this, follower of Jesus, know this. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Why are we supposed to do that? If he were just to stop there and go, okay, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. You're telling me, why should I listen to you? Why would I do that? What's the benefit in that? For the anger. And so we remember, again, those little words are important. For, it's showing us a comparison, or it's showing us a cause and effect. So do this, because the effect will be, or the cause of that, if you don't do that, anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And so if we actually believe that we are people that want to live as Jesus did, and we want to live a Christ-like life, one that is modeling and mirroring Jesus in everything that we do and say, then if we are somebody who is quick to anger, quick to speak, and we don't really care to listen to people, then that kind of behavior is not going to produce in the believer the righteousness of God. We're not going to produce the fruits that we should as believers if you care none about listening to what other people say. This includes your family. So everything I'm saying right now, James isn't talking about family specifically, but we're applying it to family. So if you're somebody that I don't really care to listen to you, I'm just going to argue with you and be the louder person. That's how I believe I win an argument. I'm just the louder voice in the room. And I really don't care to listen. Like if you're having a conversation with your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, whatever, and all you do while they're talking is think about what you're going to say in response to them, then you're not listening, right? And so James is telling us that we're supposed to be quick to hear. Like the first response that you should have when there's a disagreement or something like that we've already talked about, you need to be quick to hear. Not, hey, just that's a good idea, but that should be what you are quick to do. Make that your first instinct to listen, and then you should be slow to speak, right? Because how many times have we said something and then gone, yeah, that's not at all what I wanted to say or needed to say, or that came from a place of hurt. That came from a place of being offended. That came from a place that I shouldn't have been speaking from. And so, yes, you listen, you don't open your mouth, and then you're slow to anger. That's how this happens. And so maybe what are some of the answers that we had with that, if we had any? I just see people saying, yes, Dalton, I agree. So what did Dalton say?
To be understanding on what may be going on in their day. In their day, their life, and do not get so angry at small.
Yeah, understand what's going on in their day. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you have something annoying that your brother, well, I gave this example last week as well, where this isn't family, but it was my roommate at the time during college, where he needed to pay rent, right? And I'm the one that pays the rent. And so he, this was during the devotional on Monday. I gave this story too. But he was coming home after being in class all day and then coming home from work, and we were already kind of late on getting rent in. And so it would have been a really bad idea for me to, the minute he comes in our apartment door, say, hey, dude, like, I got to pay rent and you haven't paid it yet, so I need you to get that to me now. That would have been a really bad idea. I've said the right words, this is when we did a study on Proverbs, wise words are the right words at the right time in the right way. So that's the wrong words to say to start. Or maybe they were the right words, but they were spoken at the wrong time, right? It would have been a better idea for him to come in, me not knowing what kind of day he had, what test he just bombed, who chewed him out at work, who cut him off on the way there, how his relationship with his girlfriend was at the time, like anything like that. I have no clue. He just came in from a world that kicked the crap out of him all day long. And I'm the first thing he comes home to, which is supposed to be a safe and comforting place, is me jumping on his back. I need you to pay rent. So it would have been a better idea for me to have the friend moment right then, right? Be slow to speak. Hey man, how was your day? How's Caitlin? How was class? How was work? Can I get you anything? Right? Me being in a self-serving place. not self-serving, me being a place where I serve him myself is what I meant. And then a couple minutes later, let him go in his room and then go up and, knock on his door. Hey man, rent's due. Do you think I could get that from you? Like, how much better would that be received than the way that I did it first, right? So understanding the right words that are speaking in love, that give life, the right words at the right time in the right way, is right on track with what we are talking about here, that I think James is talking about. And so just questions for you to maybe consider. And Blair, you can just kind of put the what's one way you could be slower to speak with your family? What's one way to be slower to get angry? Like, basically each of the three parts of this, like what's one way you can actually do that? And if you're not going to answer this in the chat, I still want you to answer this for yourself, because this is very, very practical. I'm going to read the rest of this portion of James. So know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. It says, therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your soul. And then it says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourself. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, which that's scripture, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. And then, go back and watch the lunchtime devotionals from this. Please, I beg you. The ones that we did on James 1:19 through 27, that was 2 different videos. I'm telling you, like, they are some of the most practical ones that you are going to ever encounter, because every one of us at some point has been guilty. Maybe you were going to be that person tonight, that we've looked and seen, what does scripture say? And then we completely forget what it says. We understand what it's saying we need to do when it comes to relating to our family, how our words are supposed to work, how our ears are supposed to work, right? How our anger is supposed to work. And then we don't do it. And we snap at one of them immediately whenever we get off of this live stream, right? That's somebody who right here has looked into the mirror that is scripture and is a hearer of the word and not a doer, right? And James is pretty adamant about that kind of person. So anyway.
That was pretty much exactly what Peter Brown said.
Oh, look at Peter Brown. What'd you say, Peter Brown?
Later in the chapter, James talks about how listening to God's word and not obeying it means nothing. But to know what God is telling you to do, you need to listen first. Listening and empathizing first allows us to obey and react appropriately to our family.
Peter Brown, gold star. I'll just have you preach next week. All right, fine. And then there's a couple of verses that we'd like for you to, I don't want to do everything for you. And so a couple of verses for you to read, Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1, and then Proverbs chapter 15, verse 18. Blair's going to put those two in there. Proverbs 15:1 and Proverbs 15:8. And just with the simple question, application question for you of how do these verses challenge you to treat your family differently this week? So Proverbs 15, verse 1 and Proverbs 15, verse 18. How do these verses challenge you to treat your family differently this week? So the next few weeks, we're gonna look a little more in depth on how we can better love our families in the midst of some of our biggest family feuds, right? As the title of the series says. And so we're going to look specifically at how our love for them is connected to our love for God. And so I think this is a very important lesson. It can be very practical for you for these next few weeks, as you probably have been getting very frustrated with your family, and how you have nowhere to go but up, hopefully, in this. So I think I saw just all a flood of answers come in. So
Caitlin said, my choir director always says, we always listen to respond, not to hear. And that has taught me that we should try to only hear someone's words and understand them before saying something back.
Yeah, that's good. And something I want to challenge you to do, the question that we asked at the very beginning of which family member is it that frustrates you the most and the quickest and the easiest? I want you to pray for them tonight, right? Before you go to bed, you're praying for them. So do that, because it's real hard to be a jerk to somebody that you just got done praying for. Not impossible, so be careful. But I mean, you pray specifically for them, and pray specifically these verses in James 1:19-20 towards them, that you would be slow to speak, slow to anger, that you would be quick to listen to them. So you ask for it. And again, everything I think of right now goes back to James, since that's what we've been studying through. But when you ask these things, just like James talked about at the beginning of chapter 1 with wisdom, you ask, believe that God will not only answer that and give that to you, but he will give you opportunities in order to show patience with them. You ask for that, he will give you every opportunity, right? Don't pray for God to give you patience if you don't want to be inconvenienced a lot, right? A lot. I asked God for patience, and then every line at the grocery store was stupid long, and there was traffic everywhere I went, and my internet was slow, and I went, okay, I hear you. I failed the first 2 times. I got frustrated, but then whenever I got my head out of the sand and realized what was going on, okay, great, thanks God, I needed this, right? So be aware of that. So, all right, any other answers you got that you want to address? Here, come closer, Blair. Come talk into the microphone to the people. You know what? Actually, you just sit here.
Yeah, you're good.
No? All right, fine. I tried.
Something.
Oh yeah, you did see him today.
Lauren said, I think it's hardest to be patient with our family when we are in a stressful situation. We have a short wire and we're stressed, and when they do something that angers us, we tend to explode. Dalton said earlier, one way to be slower to anger with my family is to talk it out in a calm manner. Listen and put yourself in their shoes to see how they feel.
Yep.
It's difficult to be patient with my family when I'm frustrated with things outside of it. A lot of things they don't have anything to do with to relate my anger on them, because I am closer to them and I feel like it is better to release anger on them instead of releasing all my anger in a healthy way.
Yep. Yeah, it's way easier to get angry and annoyed than it is to show grace and patience. So much easier. It's so much easier for that to be our natural reaction. Haven't figured out why. Wish I did. We're imperfect, sinful people. I think that's probably the answer. Okay, so I'm gonna put the link to our Zoom after party. Everybody who's on here, go to this link and let's actually see each other's faces and play a game and have fun in whatever wonderful invention the internet has given us to be able to still connect with one another, because you need this. So I'm starting the meeting right now. Boom. Start video. All right, everybody go on to that link. Jump on there. Hopefully it's working. Do it now. Do it. Do it. Did it work? Oh yeah, there's people there. All right, cool. So that worked. I'm going to turn my audio off for this real quick like. Stay on the YouTubes, because a couple of the people have some answers. I think it's easier to get angry with family because we're not afraid of losing them. We tend to be nicer because we don't know. Oh, somebody's got me in the background still. Ah! Mm.
Ooh, Kenna, that's a good one.
Kenna, that's great. Good job, Kenna. Okay, I'm gonna end the stream. Go over to our Zoom now because I can't handle the